Hey y'all, what's up? It's Ashlyn here. So, here's the deal. I am going to be reading the first chapter in some books that I picked up, and we're going to see which ones I'm actually going to keep based on the first chapter. So, there's a few books, so let me get started. Okay, so really quick, as you guys know, I'm currently reading Killer Content by Olivia Black, and this is actually really good. It already started out with a murder, which is really interesting. I have 6 books here that I want to read. We have Radiant Sin by Katie Robert. This is probably going to be spicy. We have Reputation by Sarah Shepard. This is probably going to be more school-based, maybe. We have Smolder by Laurel K. Hamilton. I don't know, I just picked it up based on the cover because it's nice. We have Goblin by Josh Mallerman, and then I'm going to try and see if I can find a movie. If you guys know if there's a Goblin movie out there, let me know. Marissa Stapley's Lucky, and then Joyce Carol Oates' Night in Neon. So we're going to go based on the first chapter and see if we want to keep it or get rid of it. So let's start off with Radiant Sin. Now, there is some, art in here, so it's kind of interesting. She looks like she's about... Okay. I don't know if you guys have read, but also by Katie Robert is Court of the Vampire Queen. Pretty decent book. And then the Dark Olympus series, Neon Gods, Electric Idol, and Wicked Beauty. The only one I have not read of that is Wicked Beauty, but the others were pretty good. They were spicy. Real spicy. So this is the ruling families of Olympus, children of the 13, and then the 13. So it has this, if you want to just pause the video to actually see for yourself what all that is all about, go for it. Talks about all the gods, pretty much. Hades is the leader of Lower City. Hera is spouse of ruling Zeus, protector of women. Poseidon, leader of port to outside world, import-export. Zeus, leader of Upper City and the 13. And then there's a map. So there's a lot going on with this book already before you can get into the storyline of it. I'm trying to figure out where that is. I don't know. Alright, so the first chapter is called Cassandra. I hate parties, Olympus, and politics, but not necessarily in that order. I can avoid 2 out of the 3 on good days, but today is promising to be anything but. It started this morning when I spilled my coffee all over Apollo's shirt, a rookie mistake and one that might get me fired if my boss were anyone other than Apollo. He just gave me a small smile, assured me it was his fault when it was clearly mine, and changed into the spare suit he kept in his office. He should have yelled at me. I've worked for the man for 5 years now, and even that isn't enough time to stop expecting the other shoe to drop. He's hardly perfect. He's one of the 13 who rule Olympus, after all, and there are no saints among them. But he's the best of the bunch. He's never abused his power over me, never turned his position as my boss into an excuse to be a petty tyrant, has never even raised his voice no matter how thoroughly I've fucked up from time to time. It's maddening. I shove my hair back, hating that I can feel the sweat slicking down at my back as I climb the last flight of stairs. Something is wrong with the elevator in Dodonda Tower, and for reasons that seem suspect, it only goes halfway up. I glare down at the file in my hand. I should have just left well enough alone when I realized Apollo forgot it as he rushed out the door for his meeting with Zeus. He's an adult and is more than capable of dealing with the consequences. But he didn't yell at me. No one who knows me would call me a bleeding heart, more like a cold-hearted bitch. So I have absolutely no reason to have caught a cab to the center of the upper city, taken the elevator halfway up, and then proceeded to climb the rest of the 30 floors on foot. And 6-inch heels, no less. There's something wrong with me. There must be. Maybe I have a fever. I press the back of my hands to my forehead and then feel extra foolish because, of course, I feel overheated. I just did more exercise than I would ever intentionally participate in, unless running for my life, and even then, I'd fight before I ran. I curse myself for the millionth time as I push through the stairwell door and out into the hallway where Zeus's office is located. Then I get a look at my reflection in the massive mirror next to the elevator. Oh no. My red hair has gone flat, and there's a sweat stain darkening the line under my breast, which means there's an answering one down my spine. I'm practically dripping. Without thinking, I dab at my forehead and then immediately regret it when my blouse comes away with a smear of foundation. My makeup has to be melting off my face right now. It looked like I got caught in a rainstorm, except it's not rain, it's sweat, and my face is the color of a tomato on top of everything else. Fuck this. He doesn't need the file that bad. I turn for the elevator and then remember that to flee, I have to make the return trip down 15 flights of stairs. My thighs shake at the thought, or maybe they're shaking from the climb. Does it count as a workplace accident if I fall down the stairs on an errand I technically wasn't asked to do? Apollo would probably find some way to blame himself and pay for my medical bills, but getting hurt like that means no paycheck, and no paycheck means my little sister might not have the money she needs to buy books or school supplies or all the other random shit being at university requires. I can't risk an injury, even if it means I'm humiliated in the process. Cassandra? I curse myself yet again and turn to face the gorgeous white woman walking down the hallway toward me. Eris is her name now, but it used to be Helen Cassius. I wouldn't call us friends exactly, but I've attended the parties she used to throw from time to time before she became one of the 13. It always felt a bit like watching animals in a zoo as I posted up against a wall and witnessed the powerful people from Olympus's legacy families poke and snap at one another. I've learned a lot from playing the sidelines, nearly enough to protect me and my sister from the circling wolves. But Helen isn't too bad, honestly. She's never cruel when kindness will further her goals, and she's perfected a glittery exterior that everyone seems to think means she's empty-handed, or empty-headed, but that I've always interpreted as a warning not to get too close. No one serves the political currents as adeptly as she does if they're not smarter than most of the people in the room. But that was before she became heiress. Now I can't take anything for granted when it comes to her. We aren't on the same level, two women from legacy families, even if mine is disgrace and hers rules Olympus. She's one of them now, and I'm still me. Helen, or rather, heiress, what are you doing here? Meeting with my lovely brother. She shrugged. She's built slim the way her mother was, though there's clear muscle definition in the arms left bare by her black sheath dress. She looks cool and professional and untouchable, her light brown hair perfectly done. I feel grimy standing next to her. I haven't wanted a thin body in over a decade. I love my curves out of sheer defiance of everyone who acts like they should be part of a before picture, but it's hard not to compare us when we stand like this. I ruthlessly squash the urge to shift to conceal. There's no fixing how messy I look, and trying to do it will just telegraph how uncomfortable I am right now. I raise my chin and focus on smoothing out my expression instead. I see. She gives me a lone look. Apollo's in with him now. I don't think he knew you were coming, or he would have waited for you. There's no getting out of this. I'm here. Might as well see it through. I hold up the file between us like a shield. He forgot this. Ah, she glances back down the hallway. Well, I'll walk you down there. That's really not necessary. It really is. She spins on a heel and faces the same direction as me. With things in a bit of upheaval right now, the security is ramped up. Honestly, I'm not sure how you got up here at all. My people are supposed to have the upper floors locked down. That explains the elevator malfunction and why the guy downstairs was such an asshole. I shrug a single shoulder. I'm persuasive. More like you're terrifying. She laughs, a sound so happy it makes my chest pain in envy. I don't want what Eris has, the title, the power, the responsibility, but it must be nice to be so comfortable in how she moves through the world, sure that it will bend to her impressive will. I'm not naive enough to think that everything comes as easily to her as it appears, but I've had to fight and claw my way through the last decade of life. People look at me and don't automatically assume innocence. I'm painted with the same shame my parents were, even if I don't deserve it. Not that it matters. I don't give a fuck what those peacocks think of me. Not even Eris. Your people are especially trained. If they can't take me, that sounds like a you problem. Absolutely, she agrees so damn easily. By the way, is Orpheus still bothering you? Mention of Apollo's brother makes me frown. What does Orpheus have to do with anything? It takes several steps for understanding to settle over me. She's talking about that party where he was being an arrogant little prick, but that was months ago. I'm honestly surprised she remembered it all. I can handle Orpheus. If you're sure, I know it's a touchy subject, but because he's Apollo's little brother. I snort, I can't help it. Apollo has more or less washed his hands of Orpheus, as much as Apollo can wash his hands of anyone in his family. What it really translates to is that he stopped smoothing over Orpheus's messes and cut off his money. With how their mother babies the spoiled brat, it never would have worked if Apollo wasn't well. Apollo, when he shapes up, he can play prodigal son and get all the attention he's deprived of right now. He has bigger things to worry about than chasing some woman who doesn't want him. If that ever changes, don't hesitate to call me. Sure, I lie. I know better than to trust anyone in this godforsaken city. When push comes to shove, Eris will look out for herself and her interests before helping someone else. Expecting anything else is like expecting a fish to sprout wings and fly. I'll do that. No, you won't. But the offer still stands. Here we are. She stops in front of a large dark door with Zeus's golden nameplate on it. The current Zeus is Eris's brother. The last one was her father. I'd rather chew off my own arm than deal with either of the men who've held the title during my lifetime, but I'm here. It's too late to go back now. I do my best and not to hold my breath, not with Eris watching, and knock. And I'm going to stop right there. It's not the full chapter. There's a lot to it, but I definitely see myself, there's like 3 more pages, but I definitely see myself reading this book. So, that is a keeper, which is great. Alright, so now we have Reputation by Sarah Schreiber. It says Everybody's Got Something to Hide. So this gives me, just based on the cover, it gives me Pretty Little Liars meets One Tree Hill vibes. Oh, it's from the best-selling author of Pretty Little Liars. It literally says right here. From the best-selling author of Pretty Little Liars. I did not even see that. I was just going based on what it said. But anyway, okay. There's a Pretty Little Liars series, the Lying Game series, the Perfectionist series, the Amateur series, and YA. And then in adult, there's the Visibles, Everything We Ever Wanted, the High Risk, and the Elizas. So it sounds like she does like a lot of like base things. So this is from 2019. It says 2K plus H. Alright. Look what you made me do. Maybe you got it at birth. Maybe you gained it through hard work. Perhaps you have yours because you're charitable or ambitious or an asshole. It's your reputation. Everyone's got one. And if you think reputations don't matter, you're wrong. Good reputations live velvet ropes. They get you approved for loans. They're your ticket to prestigious universities. Good reputations land jobs, find you a spouse, earn you the right friends. But have a bad reputation? Well, here come the whispers. Here come the slammed doors. Just try to shake off your bad name. 10 years later, a girl will still be known as the sophomore who had the affair with her track coach. 20 years later, the only thing neighbors know about the man down the street is that he beat his wife, or that the woman in the grocery store is a frigid spinster, or that the lady on the library steps had something awful happen and she went crazy. So it makes sense to preserve a good name, sure, but how far would you go to preserve your reputation, especially when you fear you're about to be exposed? Would you work on a good cover story? Would you lie? Would you kill? You're shaking your head. I'd never do that. I'm a good person. But until you're in the thick of it, you have no idea what you're capable of. If something needs to stay hidden, you just might do whatever it takes. And that's the first part. That is definitely going to be kept too. Alright, moving on. Laurel K. Hamilton's Smolder, an Anita Blake vampire hunter novel. Okay, so I'll read the synopsis, but give me 1 second. Alright, I'll read the synopsis, and then there are 10 pages in the first chapter. So here we go. Vampire hunter Anita Blake is no stranger to killing monsters. It's part of her job as a preternatural U.S. Marshal, after all. But even her experience isn't enough to stop something that is bent on destroying everything and everyone she loves. Anita Blake is engaged to John Claude, the new vampire king of America. Humans think she's gone over to the side of the monsters. The vampires fear that their new king has fallen under the spell of the most powerful necromancer in thousands of years. In the midst of wedding preparations, including getting Edward, aka U.S. Marshal Ted Forrester, fitted as best man, Anita gets a call that the local police need her expertise at the scene of a brutal murder linked to a nationwide slaughter of vampires and humans, dubbed the Sunshine Murders. But there is more than just a murderer to catch. An ancient evil has arrived in St. Louis to challenge Jean-Claude for his crown, his life, Anita, and all they hold dear. Sorry about that. Where was I? Even Jean-Claude's new powers as king and Anita's necromancy aren't enough. They must embrace their triumvirate triumvirate, or allow primeval darkness to spread across the country, possessing first the vampires and then the humans. Evil will triumph unless Jean-Claude and Anita can prove that love conquers all. I don't know about this, guys. So the acknowledgement in this book is dedicated to everyone who has had the courage to face their personal demons and fight. I'm just going to tell you guys right now, I don't know about this book. It does not sound up my alley. It did at first, like the picture and everything, it was on display, so, but we'll see. Edward stood in front of the half circle of mirrors getting fitted for the wedding clothes he'd be wearing as best man in my wedding. I'd been his best man person less than a year ago, so turnabout was fair play. He was even hating the clothes almost as much as I hated the formal length dress that his bride had forced me to wear at the last moment when I thought I'd get away with a tux like the men. Now it was his turn to think he'd get to wear a tux and find out he was half right. Since I was marrying someone who either designed or helped design most of his own clothes, Jean-Claude had ideas for spicing up the traditional boring clothes that most modern men wore. Normally his fashion sense wouldn't have bothered Edward, who had a very traditional style, but now as he glared at himself in the mirror, he was bothered, very bothered. "You've got to be kidding me," he said. His blue eyes were already starting to turn pale like winter skies, which usually meant he was about to kill something or that he wanted to kill something. Peter, his very grown-up son, and I sat in little chairs that were usually reserved for mothers of the bride or other members of the female side of the wedding because men didn't have to come to the designer wedding couture side, ever. Edward was my bestest friend, but I grinned at him because I was enjoying the men and getting outfitted in something they hated so much more than any normal tux. "You look great," I said, smiling, and that at least was true, unlike me in every bridesmaid dress I'd ever been forced to wear. He looked to Peter for a different opinion. "This is ridiculous." He spread his arms out to his side so that Peter could get the full effect of the black leather and cloth tailcoat with its high, stiff collar that framed about half of Edward's head. His blonde hair looked brighter yellow than I'd ever seen it. Maybe it was the black leather framing it, or maybe it was his desert tan, which wasn't tan by most standards, but it was the most color I'd ever seen on Edward's skin. "Except for the collar. The jacket looks great on you. The collar isn't bad. It's just—" Peter made a waffling motion with his hand. "It's odd, like it shouldn't be there, but I really like the leather over the shoulders, and the scalloped leather over the forearm looks like a leather bracer from armor." "It's really cool, Ted." Peter's desert tan was a lot darker than Edward's. Technically, they were stepson and stepfather, but for them it wasn't about genetics, it was about love. Edward's glare softened a little and turned back to the mirrors. He took a visible deep breath and let it out slowly as if he were counting to 10. He pulled on the edges of the jacket as if it needed to be settled in place, but it fit him perfectly. The little bump of the tails on the coat actually drew the eyes to his ass, and since we had never even been anything but friends, I didn't usually notice Edward's body like that. I thought of tailcoats as old-fashioned until I saw the first of our wedding party in them and realized that they actually accentuated everyone's booty a lot more than modern jackets did. "Why do I hate this so much, besides the stand-up collar?" he asked. "Maybe it's just so different from your usual cowboy, U.S. Marshal aesthetic," Peter suggested. I looked at Edward and finally said, "It's the most fitted thing I've seen you in since you slimmed down for your wedding. You look slender, more delicate almost, and in all of the years we've been friends, delicate has never been a word I used for you." He nodded to himself in the mirror. "That's what it is. I look smaller even to me. You're in the fiercest shape I've ever seen you in, unless you put on weight since I saw you at the pool during the wedding trip. You're all muscle. Hell, Ed," and I had to stop and force myself to say, "Ted, I didn't even know you had a six-pack under there until that weekend." "I hadn't, not since I was in the military 20 years ago, so never since you've known me. All the moms and most of the daughters our marital arts class think I have the hottest dad, and that includes the male instructors," Peter said it with a touch of pride, unlike some 20-year-old sons who would have felt competitive with their fathers. Of course, Edward had never been competitive with Peter either. "High praise, I take it, since I haven't seen your instructors," I said. Peter grinned. "Yep. Since you're one of the instructors now, very high praise," Edward said, and he smiled at his son with a pride that I never thought I'd ever see in his eyes for anyone. When we first met, Edward and I had both been so alone, and neither of us had ever expected that to change. Now here we were, both of us happier than I'd ever seen us. Sometimes life was good. Peter looked embarrassed but pleased. "Why did you tell me you'd made instructor, Peter? Congratulations." It's just part-time. But you're still in college, so part-time is all you can really do. There's really not a lot of money in owning a good martial arts school, and instructors make less. You have to be a belt factory or offer kickboxing as a fitness class or something, sell out like that to earn enough money to pay full-time staff, full-time wages, Peter said. You talked to Bill like I suggested. Bill owns the school, and yes, I talked to him. I'd need another job that paid better if I wanted to be full-time at the dojo. He made quote marks with his fingers when he said full-time. How's the double major going? I'm really enjoying pre-natural primates this semester. I never knew how many species of trolls there were. And did you hear new DNA testing split the Yeti into 3 species instead of just the 2? Really? I hadn't heard about that. I can send you the link to the article our prof shared with us. Please. But now I want to see some of the trolls we have in this country in person. I've seen the lesser Smoky Mountain trolls. I almost added that I knew someone who had their doctorate on the trolls, but the person in question was my ex, Richard Zeman, and the last time Peter had seen him, someone we both knew had died. Today was a good day. We didn't need to rake up horrible memories and ruin it. Really? When? And they're indigenous to the area of Tennessee where one of my mentors lives. I don't remember if I've talked to you about Marianne, the witch who helps you learn to control your magic, right? Yeah, I guess I did talk about her. Nathaniel told me after the trip when he went with you and Micah to try and learn how the magical energy worked between the 3 of you. I knew that Nathaniel talked to Peter even more than I did, and Marianne was out of the broom closet as a witch, so I guess it was okay that Nathaniel shared. Besides, I looked at his eager face, so happy in college, learning new things that he'd call up to share, and realized that I trusted Peter. He knew how to keep secret whatever needed kept. Your face went all serious, Anita. What are you thinking about? My first thought was that what Nathaniel had shared could get Marion in trouble, and then I realized that I trusted you, trusted your judgment, trusted you to keep secret what needs keeping. He smiled at me like I'd said something wonderful. Maybe I had, but it was one of the best smiles I'd seen on his face since he got to watch his parents walk down the aisle together. Thanks, Anita. That means a lot. You've earned it, Peter. He's starting to like his biology classes better than his criminal justice ones, Edward said, still tugging at the perfectly tailored coat. Are you still fast-tracked for preternatural law enforcement, or did the trolls lure you to the biology side? I still want to be a preternatural marshal like you and Ted, but I failed my blood test for lycanthropy, so they're letting me stay in the program, but they aren't sure about my future in it. I'm sorry, Peter. Really. It's not your fault, Anita. You got hurt protecting me. If I hadn't been there, the were-tiger would have killed you. I don't regret what I did, and you shouldn't either. I looked at that calm, wise face and thought, when did he get so grown up? I'll do my best to be all healthy and therapy evolved, but I am sorry that you're popping hot on the test is keeping you out of the military and law enforcement. I don't shift to my tests as undetermined, just like Ted's, and it's my fault both times. I'm still a marshal, and that you and I got to keep our badges sets a good precedent for Peter to get into law enforcement. True, but if it's my blood getting all up in your wounds when we were both cut up by were animals, why don't both of you show full-blown therianthropy, at least on the test? I mean, I don't change form either, but my test always comes back listing every type of therianthropy I have inside me. The doctors don't know. They were interested in the fact that both Ted and I test the same because we were father and son, and they thought they had a theory until they found out we're not genetically related. I went in with Peter last time so the doctors could talk to us together and draw more blood. and draw more blood. Dr. Lillian wants to draw more blood tomorrow from both of you and from me so she can compare it. Sorry. No, we came here to figure out what's happening to us, Edward said, then tugged on the jacket as if it didn't fit right, but I'd never seen him in a piece of clothing that fit him better, and that included the tux he'd worn for his own wedding. And to try on beautiful wedding clothes, I said, smiling. The seamstress rejoined us then. She had the pants that were supposed to go with the jacket instead of the contemporary ones that she'd forced Edward into so she could see how the jacket fit. The pants were black leather. You are so going to owe me for this. 1, I've seen you wear leather for undercover work before. 2, I wore a formal length dress on a beach with bedazzled flip-flops for your wedding. That was not this bad, he said, motioning at the pants that the patient woman was holding up for him. I tried on dresses that were so low that I flashed an entire bridal store when I tripped over the hem. He grinned, then shook his head. Okay, that's fair. If I said I'm sorry I missed you trying on dresses, would you be mad? Peter asked. Yes, I said firmly. He and Edward both laughed. I tried to hold out, but I finally gave in and we laughed until Edward had to go into the changing room and get into the freshly hemmed leather pants. Okay, that told me a bunch of nothing, but a bunch of something at the same time. As in, this is more werewolf based and vampire based and magical realism based, and I'm not about it. I don't like that. All right, let's go to Goblin next. All right, so Goblin by Josh Mellerman. Goblin seems like any other ordinary small town, but with master storyteller Josh Mellerman as your tour guide, you'll discover the secrets that hide behind its closed doors. These 6 novellas tell the story of a place where the rain is always falling, nighttime is always near, and your darkest fears and desires await. Welcome to Goblin. A man in slices. A man proves his legendary love to his girlfriend with a sacrifice even more daring than Vincent van Gogh's and sends her more than his heart. Camp. Walter Camp is afraid of everything, but most afraid of being scared to death as he sets traps around his home to catch the ghosts that haunt him. He learns that nothing is more terrifying than fear itself. Happy Birthday Hunter. A famed big game hunter is determined to capture and kill the ultimate prey, the mythic great owl who lives in Goblin's dark forest. But this mysterious creature is not the only secret the woods are keeping. Presto. All Peter wants is to be like his hero, Roman Emperor, the greatest magician in the world. When the famous magician comes to Goblin, Peter discovers that not all magic is simply an illusion. A mix-up at the zoo. The new zookeeper feels a mysterious kinship with the animals in his care and finds that his work is freeing dark forces inside him. The hedges. When his wife dies, a man builds a hedge maze so elaborate that no one ever solves it until a little girl resolves to be the first to find the mysteries that wait at its heart. So that's 6 novellas. I don't know how long each of them is. It doesn't tell me. The welcome part, and then 23 to 71, 71 to 121, 121 to 181, 181 to 251, 251 to 315, an epilogue, 315 to 383. Okay, let's just do the welcome portion. See if I even want it. Alright, if Tom hadn't left his sweater in his locker, if he hadn't gone back to get it, and if he hadn't passed the main office on the way, the whole dark night might have been avoided. Hold up a minute, Tommy. Got one more run for you. Damn it, Tom had a fun night planned ahead. A great one. Pizza, beer, old movies, feet on the table, and the open prairie of the living room to himself. Where to, Jerry? Before his boss even said the city name, Tom knew he'd scratch his evening plans. He never said no to Jerry. Goblin? Geez, Jerry. Goblin's what? An hour away? I haven't been to Goblin in something close to 30 years. To Goblin might have been an hour's drive, but there are and back would make it 2. I know it, Jerry said, making his most sympathetic face. Cigar smoke rose from the ashtray on his desk and curled about his big belly. And I'm going to give you a triple for the run. The recipient gave us some extra. Wants it done his way. Very specific. Triple? Wow. What is it, Jerry? Jerry shrugged and looked to a stack of papers. It's a pain in the ass is what it is. Obsessive instructions. And he wants it delivered at midnight. No kidding. Maybe there's a party going on, or who knows. But I'd send you with a carload of unscuffed prisoners for this kind of money. There's a whole list of demands attached to the crate. Crate? Box. Tom removed his yellow ball cap and ran greasy fingers through his greasy hair. Triple. That added up to $1.20 a mile. What with Goblin hanging at least 70 miles north and maybe even more, Tom would certainly check. Not to mention the 70 back, he stood to make a cool $168 on a last-minute run. Tom could drop the box off at midnight and be in front of his TV by 2 in the morning. Hell, he could drink all day from there. Just follow the directions to a T, Tommy. The fella already made good on his money. Now it's just up to us not to mess it up. The union had the drivers going at $18 an hour, taking 40 cents on the mile. Most of the guys opted for the hourly because most of the guys factored in the dreaded long wait upon delivery. But Tom had been driving for 16 years, and he knew this guy there and that guy here, and by the time the option was granted, he'd had his routes down pat, and if there was an unexpected delay, well, that was okay too. Tom loved to count the miles. He wasn't about to give that small distraction up. You know, Jerry, I kissed my first girl up in Goblin. Alice Pratt. She bit clean through my lower lip. Tom pulled his lip out for Jerry to see. Jeez, that's something, Tommy. Maybe you could look her up. Tommy once knew Goblin. His mother had taken him there 3 summers in a row, his 11th, his 12th, and his 13th birthdays. 3 summers spent swimming in Goblin's deep lakes, not to mention the ice-cold Blackwater River, on whose banks Tom's mouth was ambushed by Alice after she fooled him into thinking he was getting a kiss without a bite. He played games in the West Fields, walked through Parish Park. Still standing in Jerry's office, he had detailed memories of passing the hedges on the east side and driving between the 2 giant topiaries framing the highway coming in from the south. He recalled the savage tour of the slaughterhouse and the pleasant one of the hardy Carroll Goblin Zoo. He recalled the owls, too, postcards and photos of the owls, keepsakes his mother had purchased downtown. Tom smiled. $168 was a lot of money to revisit his youth, a place he remembered enjoying, if he remembered it right. It's already 10:15. You better get moving if you're going to reach Goblin by midnight. Goblin. Thanks, Jerry. I'm on it. Thanks for the gig. Thank you, Tommy. I was planning on making the run myself before you showed up. He took a long pull on the cigar, then pointed at Tom with it. The box is already on the lift. You're going to need that. It's heavy as hell. And remember, he held up his hands like it's my job to say it more than once. Make sure you follow those directions. The box was easy to see from across the warehouse. It was tall, taller than Tom. When he climbed the lift and tried to move it, the resistance told him he didn't have much of a chance without some help. Delivering lead, he removed his cap again and wiped his hairline dry. He wasn't even sure how Jerry got the thing where it was. Crossing the warehouse again, he started the smaller truck and backed it up. Then he got out and started the lift. It made a nasty squawking sound Tom had never heard it make before. Sucker's testing the lift. By the time the machine got it level with the truck, it looked to Tom like the gears were going to fold in on themselves. He climbed up into the truck, took the power dolly, and rolled its lip under the box. Before trying to move it, Tom spotted the instructions nailed to the wood. Deliver to Dean Crawford, 726 Rolling Hills Drive, Rolling Hills, Goblin, MI, 48929. Content, $1, 8 feet by 3 feet, 110 pounds. You're more than 110 pounds, buddy. He read on. Special, do not deliver before midnight, 12 a.m. Recipient will not be home to receive before midnight. Do not deliver past 12:30 a.m. Recipient will not be home to receive after 12:30 a.m. If recipient is not home or does not answer the door between 12 and 12:30, or if driver misses this window of time, destroy contents of box. Wait, what the fuck? Here Jerry wrote in pen. Customer is real serious about this. No typo. Destroy box if you can't reach him. There was more. Do not attempt to open box before delivery. Make sure box is secure. Customer will not receive box if attempt to open is evident. Tom shook his head. Triple the money or not, this was a weird gig. Deliver box alone. Do not load on truck with other items. Make sure box is alone in truck. Do not get in the rear of truck with box and truck door closed. Okay, now you're telling me shit I learned 16 years ago, buddy. Think I'm going to lock myself in? Do not stop to check on box. Once back door is secured, do not open until you have arrived at 726 Rolling Hills Drive, Rolling Hills, Goblin, MI. And this. If box should fall or any noise that indicates as much should occur, do not attempt to check on box. Keep driving to destination. Tom grunted. Well, I ain't gonna let it fall, buddy. There was one more instruction followed by another note from Jerry in pen. Do not communicate to other drivers where you are delivering box to. Recipient wants strict anonymity and insists on discretion. So don't go yapping on the CB. Tom let out a long, dull whistle. He'd been given some pretty far-out orders before, but never, not once, had he been instructed to destroy a package if no one was there to get it. He'd had to bring a few back, of course, and sometimes they had you drop it off somewhere else, but never this. Goblin and back. Come on. He tried to move the box by way of the dolly, but it simply wouldn't budge. 110 pounds, my ass. He found that if he sort of knelt and put his shoulder into it, if he put all his weight into the middle and lower part, the box slid. And he was sweating when he finally got it against the wall. He had to take a second before wrapping the straps around the box and securing them to the truck wall. Then he secured the power dolly to the opposite wall. I won't be seeing you until Goblin, and we're both better for it. He got down from the truck and pulled the rope, slamming the door closed. After locking it, he walked to the cabin and stopped at the driver's side mirror. He looked at himself. You haven't been to Goblin in 30 years. Then he smiled. Think you'll recognize the city? Think the city will recognize you? He heard a sound like a hammer falling a short distance to the ground. He looked over his shoulder, deep into the warehouse, then climbed into the cabin at last. Don't let mysterious boxes freak you out, Tommy, he told himself, and don't follow directions from people who don't know any better than you do. He started the drive on edge, but didn't really know it. He'd made it out of the lot by 10:52, and the map told him Goblin was actually 72 miles away. Cool, 172.80. And 16 years of driving trucks had given him an excellent sense of timing, if nothing else. He popped in a cassette tape, smoked the butt end of a cigarette he'd hidden in the ashtray, and figured he'd reach Goblin by 11:45. At an average of 80 miles an hour for 72 miles, with some give or take here and there, he ought to pass between the topiaries at exactly 11:45, giving him some time to drive the additional 12 miles from the city gates to 726 Rolling Hills Drive. Destroy contents of box. Tom rolled the window down partway and thought he could smell a storm coming. What was with the Looney Tunes instructions? Seriously? Was he delivering something illegal? Sounded like it. He knew a bunch of drivers who sniffed cocaine to stay awake. Hell, there were even guys blowing lines for full 3-hour runs, but he ran a pretty clean ship himself. After 16 years successfully avoiding all the seedy shit, he wasn't interested in transporting drugs no matter how good the money. It wasn't that good. He knew a guy back when he started driving a grizzly sort named Werner Mount, who got 10 years for driving 100 and something pounds of 110 pounds. Come on. Could the unfathomably heavy box be 110 pounds of drugs? Tom didn't think so. He didn't want to think so, and he actually didn't believe that was the case. Jerry must have gone over all that with this Dean Crawford of 726 Rolling Hills Drive, right? Jerry didn't want that happening any more than Tom did, and Jerry certainly didn't want a driver in the dark saying, I had no idea what was in it. Jerry just told me to get it to Goblin by midnight. Not even for triple the money. No way. But Tom was getting triple. How much was Jerry making on this delivery? Would it be beneath Jerry to pocket a few grand for a sideshow like this? Maybe. Maybe Jerry and this guy Crawford worked it out that they'd get an innocent bystander, a patsy, to move the goods, get the illegal stuff into the hands of someone who honestly knew nothing and couldn't point any fingers. Destroy contents of box. Truthfully, this was nuts. He turned the radio up, rolled the window down, definitely smelled a storm. At 11:17, Tom thought he heard something like a giggle come from directly behind his seat. He turned quick to check on it, but the driver's seat was flush against the cabin wall, and Tom knew nothing could fit behind him. Maybe it was the tires. Maybe it was the radio. The CB suddenly piped up static, and Tom jumped in his seat. Is Tomcat out there? Someone was trying to reach him. Someone had seen him out on the road and was phoning in. He reached for the CB and stopped. The instructions told him not to tell anybody where he was going. What would he say? Should he lie? Tomcat. It's Bear Trap here. Thought I saw you out there. Was it wrong? Tom felt a sudden surge of shame, as if he'd been spotted transporting something illegal. Answer the CB, Tom thought. The instructions just said not to mention 726 Rolling Hills. Goblin. Bear Trap was an old friend, a fellow road dog. Answer the CB, come on. Tomcat. He picked it up. Hey, old bear. Tomcat indeed. You saw me, right? There was no response from Bear Trap, only static. Tom turned the volume up, but all it did was give him more static. Hey, old bear. Repeat. That was he and some Tomcat you saw on the road. Still no response, only static. Tom hunted back up. Well, Bear Trap, he said to nobody. Let's hope it isn't drugs. Let's hope it's a shitty piece of art that couldn't hurt a fly if it fell on it. If there was a fly in the back, the box might have fallen on it. At 11:29, Tom heard a thud so loud he was sure it had to be the tires. He gripped the wheel and braced himself, already accepting the fact that he might not get the package to Goblin on time. But it wasn't a wheel, and he hadn't hit anything, and nothing had hit him. So what then? What then other than the box falling on its side in the truck? One's back door is secure. Do not open until you have arrived at 726 Rolling Hills. Call it habit or professionalism or just plain interest, but Tom didn't care about this particular instruction. If the box fell, the box fell, and it was just his job to see that what he delivered was in the same shape coming as going. And how will Dean Crawford know the difference? He looked at himself in the driver's side mirror and saw he looked a little wiry, gaunt, crazy. The box was getting to him. The instructions were driving him nuts. He pulled the truck to the side of the highway, let her idle in park, and got out. He hadn't had to use his wipers on the drive, so he was surprised to feel drops of rain upon his face and hands. He walked to the truck back with the key out and ready. Then he did something he hadn't planned on doing at all. Rather than opening the back, he put his ear to the closed door and listened, and the silence inside was somehow convincing enough for him to head back to the cabin. Sounds like it's up, right? He said, turning on the wipers and putting the truck in drive. Then he drove. Jerry. Yeah, Tommy. You and Goblin already? Tom liked the feel of the CB in his hand, like he was still connected to Jerry, to his job, to his life. Not yet. Everything all right? Sure, it's just what, Tommy? Just nothing. Just wanted to thank you again for the gig. Hell of a gig. You getting emotional on me? Suppose I sort of am. Don't mention it. You deserve all the big runs anyway. You're the best driver we got, and you know it. You gonna look up that Alice girl? Who? First kiss? The biter. Oh, Alice Pratt. Tom laughed. It felt really good to laugh. How could he be transporting something illegal and laughing at the same time? Didn't seem possible. I think I'll leave her be. All right, well, CB me after the delivery. With every mile the truck swallowed, Tom felt like the box was getting lighter. Not that the truck was easier to handle, no, but like the pressure of following those instructions was lessening. Less time spent with the rule was less time to break it. He thought he might ask Mr. Crawford what it was when he got there. Maybe it was like a riddle. What's sealed and heavy and might smell like a storm and might giggle and you can't approach it under any circumstances? The sort of brain teaser that pins you down before it tells you the answer, and all at once you understand it so clearly that it's shameful you didn't figure it out on your own. He better be home, Tom said. Then he had a vision of himself in a stranger's driveway, busting up the contents of a mystery box. Because of Alice Pratt, he imagined this driveway on the banks of the Blackwater River, the pieces taken by the cold flowing water. He'd better be home. Was it a gift for a mistress? The secrecy, the small window to deliver, the hush money. A Pontiac Sunbird pulled up next to him, and through its window Tom saw two young men pointing to the back of the truck. What? Tom mouthed. Through the falling rain, the men became more animated. The back of your truck, Tom heard before the faces with their open mouths vanished into the rain ahead. Did the back open up? Tom looked in the driver's side mirror. He saw no swinging door. He took his foot off the gas and pressed it hard. No swinging door. He didn't want to admit what was so obvious about the sudden road encounter. They looked scared. Scared for themselves. What's on my truck? Tom asked the otherwise empty cabin. Keep driving to destination. Do not stop to check on box. He looked at the clock. 11:38. He was 7 miles from Goblin. He had time to stop. He had time to do his job. Tom pulled the truck to the side of the road, the front tires in matching puddles of rain. He grabbed the flashlight from the glove compartment. The short walk from the door to the rear of the truck went too quickly, it seemed, and he was facing the closed door before he wanted to. What am I delivering to Goblin? But the hollering from the Sunbird turned out to be just what Tom expected it was, a lot of fuss over nothing. What else but a burned-out taillight? Tom smiled. He looked up to the back door. He's not going to know if you open the damn door, buddy. He placed his hand on the lock. Would this be the first time he ever willingly defied instructions on the delivery? Tom wanted to say no, of course not, but he couldn't think of another time he had. He unlocked the door. You see, he said, no fireworks, no bomb going off, no sudden police lights either. The door screeched unoiled when he pushed it up, and there it was, lying on its side. The big box did tip over, but no. Tom turned the flashlight on and saw it was just the power dolly. He must have done a poor job securing it. The box itself stood exactly as he'd last seen it, strapped him 5 times over. He climbed up into the back of the truck. The rain came down hard against the metal roof and echoed in the rectangular chamber. Tom stepped on something gooey and slipped and fell on his ass. On the floor now, he saw movement, 1,000 insects crawling at the base of the box, but when he trained his light on it, there were none. Fucking hell, I've got the heebie-jeep. Drive. A voice, unquestionably a voice. The echo of its one word lingered round and round in Tom's ear. Then movement indeed, a shadow, a shape, just beyond the box. Someone crouched behind it. Hey, is someone in there? He couldn't believe the words that came out of his mouth. Drive. Headlights from the road painted just enough of the inside of the truck for Tom to see the shoulder of a silhouette, a pair of white eyes. He felt tears swell up in his own. He thought he was going to piss himself. He wanted badly to be home on that couch eating pizza, pounding beers. He wanted help. He wanted someone to pull him out of the situation, but it was his own feet, his own legs, that took him to the edge of the truck bed. The rain didn't wake him up. He wasn't asleep. It crashed against him like it would a window pane, a flower pot, a stone. Numb in this way, Tom leapt from the back and pulled the door down quickly. The box was still strapped in, wasn't it? It hadn't been opened, had it? So why did it feel like the owner of that voice had not sneaked into the truck at all? That rather, Tom had dollied him inside himself. He hurried back to the cabin and got behind the wheel. He merged. He drove. At 11:45, he reached the Goblin City limits. Both hands were trembling. White piles of dust on the wheel. Tom didn't know who the two Leviathan topiaries were that greeted him, but they were George Carroll, Goblin's founding father, and Jonathan Trachenbroid, the man who brought all the owls so many years ago and who was later strangled on Pride Hill, strangled by the ancestor of the very man who trimmed these bushes. Lit from below with giant floodlights, the pair were as intimidating a welcoming committee as Tom had ever seen. Why did you drive? Why didn't you run? Why did you listen to that voice? As he entered the city, he couldn't answer these questions other than to imagine himself abandoning the truck and being tracked forever by whatever was inside it. He had a better question than why, Tom said, wide-eyed and shaking as the traffic increased and the landmarks and cityscapes came into view through the rain-obscured windshield of the truck. What have I brought to Goblins tonight, Tommy, my man? What? But whatever it was, its white eyes must still shine in the back, and the echo of its timeless voice must still be back there, too. Tom was too late. He knew that. Whatever was back there, he was too late in keeping it from Goblin. He wondered when it began, this unforeseen route, hidden in the bigger route of delivering a package. Was it when Jerry called him into his office, when he agreed to make the run? Or was it long before then, 16 years ago, when he applied for the driver's job in the first place? Or maybe it went even further back than that, to the day Goblin itself was discovered, growing ever since, until one rainy evening Tom forgot his sweater and passed the office on his way to retrieving it. Too late, Tom said, too afraid to turn back, too afraid to defy whatever was back there. You've already delivered it. He felt shameful, like he'd delivered something illegal after all, something dark enough to eclipse the legends of the city and to cast shadows over the stories of the people who lived there. He'd made 86-40 so far, but was no longer sure of his chances to spend it. Whoa! Okay, so that was pretty good. We got 2 more books. So I think I'm going to continue that because it's Josh Malerman, so duh. Alright, so now we're on Lucky by Marissa Stabley. February 1982, New York City. Someone had left a baby outside the nunnery, and it was Margaret Jean's night to listen for the door. The rest of the sisters had their earplugs in and couldn't hear the wails that pierced the air, but still she stayed motionless at her bed, hoping someone else would wake and relieve her of the drama. Sister Francine, for example, who loved to be busy. Sister Danielle, who had a solution for everything. The baby's cries grew louder, and still no one else woke. Margaret Jean touched the gold crucifix around her neck. She had been at the nunnery only a few months. She was still undergoing her aspirancy. The nuns were supposed to decide the following week if she could become one of their order. This was the first night she had been left in charge. A test. She wasn't really Catholic. She had forged a baptismal certificate. It had seemed like a brilliant con, her best one yet, to pose as a young woman seeking to pledge her life to the church. No one would ever look for her here. She would be safe. Except she was expected to be a saint, and she wasn't one. The crying continued. It was freezing out there. The child could die. She forced herself to stand, pull on a cardigan, and move off down the hall, a flashlight in hand. She pushed hard against the wind to open the front door. A little bundle rested on the middle stair. Pink blankets, a tiny fist, curled and shaking. Dear God, if only this could be someone else's problem, Margaret Jean found herself praying. This habit was as new as the one she had borrowed to wear tonight. It felt like a costume. There was a man walking along the sidewalk toward the cathedral. He stopped and stood at the base of the steps listening, then walked up them while Margaret Jean stood still watching. He knelt. He said something to the baby, but Margaret Jean couldn't hear what because of the wind and the crying. He lifted the baby into his arms, and she stopped her wailing. Margaret Jean remained as still as possible. The man looked up at her. He placed his hand on his heart. Sister, he said. The wind died down. The habit fell back around her face and shoulders. The man moved up the stairs with the baby in his arms. Sister, he repeated. She nodded. Hello. The man was too handsome, like Cary Grant or Rock Hudson. She had met this kind of man before, had the kind of intimate knowledge of men like this that nuns were not supposed to have. The elbows of his jacket were threadbare, but his shoes were mirror shiny. His hair was gelled so it barely moved in the wind. I'm John. I'm sorry you were awakened by my child. Your child? Yes, and thank God I found her. My wife Gloria has been struggling with, well, the baby blues. There was a faint hint of an Irish lilt in his rounded vowels. Tonight I went out to work, and when I returned she was beside herself. She told me she'd gone and left the baby somewhere, a church. I've been walking around the city all night, trying to find which, and now here she is, thank God. Why didn't you call the police? And get my own wife arrested? He was staring into her eyes, searching for something. She knew he wouldn't find it. Instead, I prayed for a miracle, and here it is. I found my child. You can go back to bed now, sister. Margaret Jane looked down at the baby. Your wife should seek help. Of course, I promise she will, but my wife deserves another chance. Don't all God's children deserve another chance, sister? The way he was speaking to her, it was as if he knew her, as if he knew all about the second chances she did or did not deserve. She felt a wave of compassion for him coming upon her as quickly as the bread delivery truck now barreling down the street, about to begin its early morning rounds. I hope that you and your family are blessed with good fortune. The man was looking at the gold crucifix around her neck. We could use a little help. I could sell that gold. Is there any way you could spare it, sister? Margaret Jean. Margaret Jean, she supplied. So we could pay for groceries and for formula, since my wife's in such a state her milk has dried up. The necklace was just a prop, real gold, but a prop nonetheless. She took it off and placed it on the baby. It's 14 karat. It felt good to do good, she realized, to give rather than take. She peered down at the baby. What's her name? A brief hesitation, but Luciana. We named her after my mother. Margaret Jane chose to believe him. She placed her fingers on Luciana's brow and made the sign of the cross just as the priest had done to her hours before during the Ash Wednesday service. Your sins are forgiven, she said, raising her eyes to the man's. The problem with reading the Bible too often day after day, the way an aspiring nun was required to, was that you started to believe miracles could happen anywhere, even in Queens. Margaret Jean imagined that she really had blessed the child and the man, that she was protecting them and would see them both again someday, that she had done the right thing. She bolted the door behind her and returned to her monastic cell, where she prayed for the baby and the man, prayed that they would be blessed, that they would be lucky. Chapter 1. Luciana Armstrong stood in the bathroom of a gas station in Idaho, close to the Nevada border. She was wearing a white blouse, navy blazer, matching skirt, and low heels. Her hair was tied back in a neat bun. Goodbye, Elena, she said to her reflection, and tried to ignore the sadness. She had been sure Elena was going to stick around. She took off her clothes and shoved them in her handbag. Then she pulled out a mini dress and a pair of stilettos. She snaked the dress over her body, smoothed down the gold-beaded material, felt a twinge of sadness as her hands passed over her flat stomach, shook out her hair. A stranger was reflected back at her now. Hello, Lucky, she said. In the gas station convenience store, she roamed the aisles. A man buying cigarettes whistled at her as she tried to decide between cheese puffs or pretzels. She grabbed both and approached the register, skimming the newspaper headlines as she waited. Day of reckoning on Wall Street, and analysts predict 2008 market crash will be worst of all time. Then a cardboard stand on the counter caught her attention. Multi-millions lottery, it said. Reading as she was 10 years old again, hurtling down the I-90 to who knows where next with her father. You're the luckiest girl in the world, he had always told her, and he had always bought a lottery ticket when they stopped at a gas station rest stop like this one. We'll never win, but we can hope. The lottery is the greatest con of all time, kiddo. Proves our government is just like us, tricking people into thinking any dream can come true. When he said things like that, it made Lucky feel better about who they were and the things they did. She reached the cash register impulsively. Lucky grabbed a lottery play slip from the stand and filled out her numbers, the same ones she had used for just for fun when she was a kid. 11 because that was how old she had been when she had thought to have lucky numbers. 18 because that was the age she couldn't wait to be at the time, thinking adulthood was going to unleash some sort of magic into her life. 42 because that was how old her dad had been when she had come up with the numbers. 95 because that was the highway they were driving on that day. And 77 just because. She handed the paper to the cashier. He printed off her lottery ticket and handed it back. You should sign your name on that, he said. People forget, and then their ticket gets stolen or lost. It's a big jackpot this time, 390 million. I have a higher chance of being struck by lightning twice than I do of winning that jackpot. It's just a dream, that's all. Then she turned, ducked her head as she walked past the security cameras and out into the parking lot. She put the ticket in her wallet and imagined herself in a beach house in Dominica, taking the ticket out once in a while and remembering her dad before he had landed in prison. Outside, her boyfriend Carrie had finished filling their silver Audi's gas tank. He saw her, grinned, and mouthed the word damn. She blew a kiss at him and walked toward the car, letting her hips sway, but a voice made her turn. Could you spare any change? A woman was sitting with her back against the concrete wall of the station, holding a sign that said, unemployed, broke, anything helps. Lucky took out her wallet. She emptied it of several hundred, and then paused and pulled the blouse, skirt, blazer, and shoes from her bag. Take these. Where would I even wear them? Sell them on consignment or use them to pretend to be someone else. The woman blinked at her, confused. What? Never mind. Just take care, okay? Carrie was grinning as she walked toward him again. She got in the car and he grabbed her chin, turned her face to his, kissed her mouth. You're looking damn hot, miss. What did we register at the hotel as? Anderson? I think it's great that you went in there looking like an investment banker and came out looking like the girl I used to know. You never dress like this anymore. And now I see why you wanted to go to Vegas so badly. He let go and she felt something shift between them. But it's funny that you're always thinking you can, I don't know, redeem yourself or something by giving money out to people like her. Soon you won't feel that need anymore. Soon you'll forget all about it. She felt suddenly irritated. People like her. And I'm not trying to redeem myself. I'm trying to help people who need help. Why? Out the window, the woman had her hand lifted in a wave, but Lucky looked away. Make up for the money we've stolen by acting like Robin Hood? Steal from the rich, give to the poor? It's cute, I guess. He started the car and pulled out. But it's never going to work. We are who we are, Lucky. He had a way of digging straight down to the painful secret spots in her person's psyche, and not for the first time recently she felt a niggling sense of worry about this. They were moving to a remote island together. It was just going to be the two of them. They would never be able to leave. Carrie merged with the traffic on the highway and turned up the stereo. A thumping techno beat filled the car. He glanced at her and smiled, and then she smiled back. This is going to be fun, she said to him, hoping to convince them both. Sure, it is. We need some fun. Blaze of glory, right? She opened a bag of pretzels and tilted it toward him. They were just a regular couple on a road trip, nothing to fear. What will it be like in Dominica, do you think? What kind of house will we live in? It had been like a game, but back when they had first met to dream of the life they were going to build, construct a future in their minds. They hadn't had much time to dream about this next incarnation of their lives, given that they were leaving in such a rush. Oceanfront, obviously, but what do you think? Pool or no pool? No pool. Who needs it when you have the ocean, right? And we'll get a dog, a rescue, like Betty was, and go for long walks with her on the beach every day. The words dried up as soon as she mentioned Betty. The lost dog signs were still posted on poles around their neighborhood in Boise. The loss of Betty was yet another ache inside her empty body. Do you think someone found her? Someone good? Carrie glanced at her now before turning his attention back to the highway. Found who? Betty. There was a lump in her throat. Sure, but she's being well taken care of right now. Don't you worry about her. Betty will land on her feet. Carrie took one hand off the steering wheel and reached for Lucky's. I know it's hard, but everything is going to be fine. His hand was clammy. He was scared, she could tell. The truth, so was she. So, I don't like that one. Just saying. And I'm going to skip out on Goblin, I think, because it's a huge book. Alright, so we have the last book, which is Night Neon, Tales of Mystery and Suspense by Joyce Carol Oates. It was really good. Just kidding, we're going to skip this one. I don't know why, but I'm not really into the short story books anymore right now. I want like a actual like story, not like multiple stories. So, I apologize, but that's everything I have for you guys. So, I will see you in the next video. We are definitely going to be keeping The Radiant Sin by Katie Robert and Reputation by Sarah Shepard. So, and we're still reading killer content. So, have a good night, guys. Bye.